Lesson 4 begins on page 640, so make sure you're on that page. And the first thing we're talking about today is volume. And so the volume of a three-dimensional figure is the measure of the space it occupies. So that means if you're talking about like the volume of a pool, you're thinking about how much water it can hold, how much space there is that we could put water in there. Today we're only talking about volume of a prism, and remember there's two types of prisms that we talked about mostly, rectangular prisms and triangular prisms. There are more, but those are the ones we've dealt with the most. And remember, we know that it's a prism because it has two parallel congruent bases, or possibly more if it's a cube or a rectangular prism. Okay? So volume for a rectangular prism, you have volume equals capital B times H. Notice I crossed the other one out. There's no point in memorizing two formulas, so just use this one. The B, the capital B, means the area of the base. So in this case, the area of the base there is a parallelogram, so you do base times height, and it would just be of that shape on the bottom. Then you do the height of that three-dimensional object. So when you think about it, the way this works is first of all, you find the area of the bottom. So in this picture you can see how they found how many cubes were at the bottom. Then they said, okay, the height was 2. So once you find the area of the bottom, you have the bottom and then the top's going to be the exact same. So you'd multiply it by 2. If the height was 4, you'd multiply it by 4. This might make a little bit more sense when you first look at an example. So this one, find the volume of the rectangular prism. Now, something I tend to do is I tend to shade the base just to kind of help me look at just that part. And we're going to use the other formula. Volume equals area of the base times the height. So the area of the base, this is the base right here. And so we do 5 times 4 because that's a parallelogram. So it would be 5 times 4, which is 20. And then you multiply it by the height. That is the height. So you do 20 times 3, and that's where they got their 60 centimeters. And actually, sorry, it's cubed. Volume is going to be cubed. Area is always squared. And volume is cubed. The reason for that is area is two-dimensional. Volume is always talking about three-dimensional. So go ahead, pause the video, try your got it problem, make sure you're showing all of your work, and once you have all of that ready, go ahead and unpause the video and see my answer. Alright, so the volume is always the area of the base times the height. So the area of the base, notice this is your base down here. So you do your length times your width, or you can think the base times the height. And don't get confused. This is the area of the base. And so when we're talking about the area of the base, you're just looking at that flat two-dimensional figure on the bottom. Okay, so it's 9.5 times 5, which gives you 47.5. Then you have to multiply it by the height of that three-dimensional shape. So you multiply it by 3, and there's your answer. The next one, those are just rectangular prisms, but we also work on triangular prisms. So triangular prisms, you're going to use the exact same formula, but this time the base is going to be a little bit different because the base is a triangle. Remember the area formula for a triangle is 1/2 times base times height. So you'd find the area of the base first, then you multiply it by the height of that prism. In this case, when you look at the example down here, here is the base, and hold on one second, my light just went off. There we go. Okay, so this triangle here, that's the base. So we do 1/2 times our base times our height, and remember, it doesn't matter which order since we're multiplying. You could put 6 then 8 or 8 then 6, and you find that amount. So 0.5 times 6 times 8 is 24. Then multiply it by the height of the prism. Now, this one looks confusing because the height's actually going this way. Your height is between the two bases. Your height is between the two bases. So that's why this is the height. Alright? Once you multiply by 9, you would get 216, and that's feet cubed. Go ahead and pause the video. Try the triangular prism that's at the bottom. Okay, so one way that you might want to do this so that it's a little bit more organized, maybe you like doing it in 2 separate parts, but then you might risk forgetting to multiply it by the 3 at the end and just finding this answer. So one way that you can do it is just by putting the parentheses and finding the area of the base. All of it goes within the parentheses. This is the way I tend to like to do it, and I will mostly do it that way when we work in class. So to find the area of this base, this triangle is the base, and so I know that for a triangle, sorry about that. Okay, so for this triangle, this is the base, this is the height, so it's 1/2 base times height. Well, that's 10, because you multiply it by 1/2. So I know this is 10, and then it's like stacking 7 10s on top of each other, because this is the height since it's in between the two bases. So 10 times 7 is 70. It would be 70 inches cubed. When you flip to the back page, there's not any other types of problems. We're only doing volume of a rectangular prism and a triangular prism. But now they have one where you're actually finding the volume of both of them and then comparing them. So it says which lunchbox holds more food. And I'm going to cross these out. I don't want you to use that formula. You're going to use base times height. So go ahead and cross those out and change that formula on there. After that, you're going to look at this and say, okay, area of the base. Well, my base, I can't really shade it because I can't see the other side, but I know the base is a rectangle at the bottom there and a rectangle at the bottom there. So I'm going to multiply these two numbers together to find the area of the rectangle. That's what they did here. That's the area of the base, and that's what they did here, the area of the base. Then multiply it by the height of the lunchbox. So it's 10 inches tall, so multiply it by 10, 9.5, multiply it by 9.5. And when you end up multiplying all three together, these are your answers. And notice the second lunchbox has a larger number, meaning it can hold more because it has a larger volume. So in this case, you were just finding the volume of each one, and then you wanted to see which one was larger. Okay, because there's not another got it problem and I want you to do more practice, I want you to go ahead and try example 2 real quick. We'll go over that one then, and then also number 3. So go ahead and pause the video and try number 2. Okay, so on the first one, make sure you're looking at what the prism is, what type, a rectangular or a triangular. So think about the bases. It's the same formula, but for the area of the base, you have to think about, okay, is it just b times h, or is it 1/2 b times h? Since it is a triangle, you're doing 1/2 base height, finding the area of the triangle, then multiply it by the height of that prism. And remember, the height goes in between those two bases. Then go ahead, I always do what's in the parentheses first. In this case, since you're multiplying, it wouldn't really matter. But 1/2 times 7 times 3 is 10.5. Multiply by that by 6, and you get 63 yards cubed. Once again, just the very last one, go ahead and pause the video and try number 3. It says one cabinet measures 3 feet by 2.5 feet by 5 feet. A second measures 4 feet by 3.5 feet by 4.5 feet. Which volume is greater? And one thing I want you to think about, a cabinet. So a cabinet would be a rectangular prism. Okay, go ahead and pause it and find your answer for that one. Which has a greater volume? Okay, so on this last one, you would find the volume of each by first finding the area of the base, multiplying it by the height. Now, some of you are probably thinking, but I don't know which two are for the base. But since it's a rectangular prism, when you're looking at a rectangular prism, if this was the base, so the base height and the base and the height, just looking at that flat two-dimensional shape, and then this would be the height of the prism. But if I changed and look at this as the base, this would be base and height to find my area, and then that would be the height of the prism. So with a rectangular prism, you have more than one option for the base. It could be these pairs, or these pairs, or these pairs. Remember, we talked about this in the classroom where it could be the floor and the ceiling, the front and the back, or the window wall with the door wall. Okay? So as long as you are using two of them for the area and then the other one for the height, you should still be getting the exact same numbers. So the first one, the first two were my base, that was the height, so you get 37.5. The first two were my base, the last one was the height, and when you multiply them, you get 63. So the second cabinet has a greater volume. Make sure you fill out all of those notes and come prepared with questions tomorrow.